Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode here on Dangerous African Confessions HD. In this episode, we have the continuation of the conversation from our sister, who talked to us about the fact that her own pastor had her used her witchcraft spirit to aid him in ministering in his church, under the pretense of receiving divine messages from the Lord. In order to know how it happened and what even happened to our sister, let us now go into today's video and listen to what our sister has for us. Please subscribe if you haven't done so, and also do like and share this video, so others out there can also benefit from this conversation, and hit the notification bell as well, so you will be notified anytime we upload videos.
But it wasn't just me he had his eyes on. It wasn't long before he saw an opportunity to solidify his hold on both me and my mother. I think he knew that the moment he had my trust, it would be easy to pull my mother into his web as well. She was lost, after all. She had never truly recovered from my father's death. She lived in the shadow of his absence, trying to hold everything together, while the weight of life's burdens crushed her spirit. She didn't have the energy or will to fight back, and the pastor knew it. I remember one Sunday after service, when he took my mother aside. They stood together near the church entrance, just out of earshot from the rest of the congregation. I watched from a distance, not knowing then that this moment would change everything. He had always been warm toward my mother. He would check on her after every service, make sure she was okay, offer her words of encouragement. But now, his concern seemed different, almost too sincere. He spoke to her as though he were her confidant, her protector. That was when he promised to help my mother through all her troubles, and that, for such a gift that I have, I should come and live with him in his house, so that he can monitor my development. That was when he promised my mother some upkeep money at the end of every month to help her in her doings. For the first time in a long while, my mother looked relieved. Prophet made it sound so easy. He made her feel as though she had been carrying the weight of the world alone, and now, finally, someone was here to help lift it off her shoulders. It was tempting. I could see it in her eyes, the sense of hope that had been long absent. She was weary. So weary. In the end, my mother agreed. I didn't know it at the time, but I was already losing her, too. The pastor had played her weakness, her need for stability, and he had won her trust. In the end, my mother agreed. I didn't know it at the time, but I was already losing her, too. The pastor had played her weakness, her need for stability, and he had won her trust. Honestly speaking, my mother didn't see what was at stake, the way he had carefully laid the groundwork, slowly manipulating her, offering her the promise of security and relief. In return, he asked for my presence, my full presence, to fulfill his plans. The next day, when Prophet Michael came to our home, he handed my mother an envelope filled with money. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make her believe in his promises. Enough to convince her that this was the answer to all our struggles. He was kind to her, always offering comfort, telling her that everything would be alright, that she would never have to worry again. And my brother, that was when I packed my bags, leaving the home I had known for so long. He assured my mother that everything would be better for both of us. I was to stay at the church, to be closer to the work I was meant to do. I couldn't argue with him, I trusted him, I believed him. When I left, I did so with the weight of my mother's approval on my shoulders. She was relieved, grateful. She believed that I was doing something important, something divine. She didn't know what I had come to understand about Prophet Michael, what I had begun to feel in the pit of my stomach. But at that moment, I didn't question it. I didn't want to. And so, I moved into the church. I stayed with him. It felt like a new beginning. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer in control of my own life. And yet, the more I stayed there, the more I believed in the mission he had given me. The visions, the prophecies, the healing, it all felt so real. But somewhere deep inside, I knew I was being used. But by then, I didn't know how to escape. You see, after my move into his home, what began as quiet prayers and meditations under his guidance quickly spiraled into something much darker. I didn't realize it at first, but soon, everything about the power I had been given, this gift I thought was meant to heal, began to feel like a curse. The reason why I'm saying all that is, it started with small requests. Prophet Michael would ask me to pray alone, to focus my energy on a specific question or problem, and then wait. The visions I experienced became more vivid and intense, yet I had no control over them. They were flashes of people's lives, private, secret details that only they knew. As I tell him and he delivers these prophecies, the congregation would react with awe and fear, but there was something inside me that was becoming more uneasy, more unsettled. That unease grew when the pastor began to ask for more. I remember one evening, as I sat quietly after another successful prophecy. He told me that, to truly harness what I have and the visions, we must take it further. He said that I must understand the depth of the gift I possess. I didn't understand at first. The prophecies felt sacred, like they were coming from a place beyond me, a divine source. How could I question them? How could I question him? You know what happened to me after these periods? I was led deep into the forest one night, far from the safety of the church grounds. The moon was high in the sky, casting an eerie silver glow over the clearing where he had set up a small altar made of dark stones. The air smelled of wet earth and something else, something that made my skin prickle with discomfort. He revealed to me that was where we would begin the real work. He told me that we were going to awaken the full potential of my powers. He told me that we must make a sacrifice to the forces that guide me. A blood offering, to bind me to the ancient spirits. One might not understand this. But this man spoke so calmly, so confidently, that I didn't think to question him. I trusted him. He had told me all along that this power was a gift, that it was meant for good. So, when he handed me a dagger, its blade gleaming ominously in the moonlight, I felt a cold chill run down my spine. But I couldn't back out. I had already given so much. He made me believe that it is for the greater good. And that, it is how I will unlock my true purpose. He said that, my blood is the key. The ritual began simply, though I had no idea of its true gravity. He guided me through cutting my palm, watching as the blood spilled into a bowl he had placed in front of the altar. He spoke words that were foreign to me, chants in a language I didn't understand. It was as if the very air around us vibrated with an unseen force. I felt my heart race as I stared at the blood, the warmth of it pulling beneath my skin, dripping into the earth below. I didn't know then how deep this ritual would go, how much it would cost me. The sacrifice wasn't just my blood. No, it was the beginning of my descent into something far darker. As my blood mingled with the earth, I felt the ground tremble beneath me, as if the earth itself was responding, accepting my offering. And with it came the voices, whispers of ancient spirits, of people long dead, urging me to listen, to learn. To tell you this, the vision I had that night was unlike any other. It was not a simple prophecy, but a flood of images, of death, of pain, of lives torn apart. I saw things no one should ever see, things that sent shivers down my spine. And through it all, he stood at my side, his hand resting on my shoulder as though guiding me through the darkness. He told me that it was just the beginning. That night he said that, I have made the first offering. Now, the power was mine to command. But as I started giving him the prophecies in the days that followed, I felt the cost of that first ritual settling deep within me. The visions were sharper, clearer, but there was a price to pay. Every prophecy I saw drained something from me, my strength, my spirit, my very essence. And still, he pushed me to go further, to give more, to dive deeper into the world of spirits and sacrifice. The rituals became more frequent, each one more intense, more demanding. And each time, the sacrifices became more extreme. You see, in one ritual, we went to an abandoned church on the outskirts of the town, a place that had long been forgotten by the world. Its doors were rotten, the windows shattered, the walls blackened with age and neglect. But it was here that the next phase of the rituals would take place. He had a special plan for me, something that would solidify my connection to the spirits. He told me that the spirits I communicate with require more than just my blood. They need offerings, tokens of my devotion, my obedience. We will give them what they want. I had no idea what he meant until I saw the goat tied to the altar. Its white, terrified eyes stared at me, but it was too late. Prophet Michael had already begun the chant, his words carrying through the empty church like a dark song. As he spoke, the room seemed to grow colder. Without hesitation, he slit the goat's throat, letting the blood spill across the altar in a slow, steady stream. The smell of iron filled the air, thick and overpowering. The room seemed to come alive, as if everything in there were responding to the sacrifice. I felt a strange pull in my chest, as if something was awakening within me. I didn't want to watch. I wanted to close my eyes, to pretend I wasn't part of it. But I couldn't look away. The blood, the chanting, the energy, it all felt too powerful to resist. And then it happened. I felt the power surge within me, more intense than ever before. Again, the visions I saw that night going forward were clearer, more vivid, more frightening. I saw into the deepest corners of people's hearts, heard their secrets whispered in the darkness. I could see the future with terrifying clarity. But as I watched, a creeping fear began to settle in my heart. The sacrifices didn't stop there. We traveled further each time, to ancient burial sites, to desolate ruins of forgotten temples. Each place required its own specific ritual, its own specific offering. Animal sacrifices, rare herbs, strange symbols painted on the ground, all of it was part of the process. And every time, he would urge me on, convincing me that the more I gave, the stronger the connection would be, the clearer the prophecies would come. At one point, he took me to a remote cave deep in the mountains, its entrance hidden behind thick vines. Inside, the air was thick with dampness and dust, and the walls were covered in strange markings, like the cave itself had been a place of worship long ago. He performed an intricate ritual here, drawing a circle of black ash on the ground, surrounding us with symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of our candles. He said it was the final step. The ultimate offering. He said, "My soul will be bound to the spirits for eternity. This is the price of being the vessel." You see, by then, I no longer questioned him. My vision blurred as I knelt, repeating the words he taught me, chanting as I had seen him do countless times before. And when I finished, I felt an unbearable pressure in my chest, like something was being ripped from me. My blood, my energy, my very soul felt like it was being drawn out, poured into the cave, into the spirits who had been guiding me. And when it was over, I was no longer the same. The visions were more intense, more powerful than I could bear, but something inside me was gone. The person I had been, the girl I once knew, was slipping away with every ritual, every sacrifice. I was no longer just a vessel. I was a puppet, controlled by forces I didn't understand, and by a pastor who cared only for the power I could give him. You see, the problem is that, as my powers grew stronger, so did the grip of him on me. At first, I thought it was a blessing, a calling to do good, to help people. But what I failed to realize was that with every prophecy, every ritual, I was becoming less and less of myself. I was becoming his tool, his weapon. The destruction began slowly, in ways I couldn't fully understand at first. It was the way he started to isolate me from my family, my old friends, and anyone who questioned him. He used to say that we had to protect the ministry, that there were enemies out there who wouldn't understand the work we were doing. He made me believe that anyone who wasn't part of the church, or anyone who questioned him, was an enemy. I remember one evening when my mother came to visit. She had been concerned. I had been gone from home for months. But he was quick to intervene. He spoke to her with such authority, such charisma, that it wasn't long before my mother's concerns were dismissed. She began to accept that I was doing God's work. She didn't even notice how I had changed, how much I had withdrawn from her. The pastor began to weave a web of control that I couldn't escape. And the worst part, I didn't even know I was trapped. I thought I was doing this all for God, for a greater purpose. But then, something sinister began to happen, something I couldn't ignore anymore. He started to get closer. Too close. It started with the way he looked at me, his gaze lingering just a moment too long, as if studying me, measuring me. At first, I brushed it off. He was my pastor, after all. He had guided me through the darkest moments of my life, helped me discover my purpose. But the line between spiritual guidance and something darker blurred as the weeks went on. You see, one evening, we were alone in the church. The building was quiet except for the distant hum of the candles flickering. He had been speaking softly, comforting me as he always did after one of the more intense visions. My hands were shaking from the power I had just witnessed, people's deepest secrets laid bare before me, their lives unraveled in an instant. I was exhausted, but there was something soothing in his presence. Or so I thought. That night, something felt different. His hand brushed mine as he passed me the ritual tools, and my heart skipped a beat. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened, just enough for me to feel his presence all around me. I looked into his eyes that had always seemed so kind, so fatherly, and yet, in that moment, they were filled with something else. There was a darkness there, a hunger. I felt a chill in my spine as he drew closer, and before I could react, his lips met mine. I froze. I didn't know what to do, what to think. His kiss was soft, but it carried an undeniable sense of ownership. And in that moment, I felt the full weight of his control over me. He wasn't just my pastor anymore. He wasn't just a guide. He was something much darker, a predator. And my brother, this was the beginning of a dangerous affair. A secret affair. He began to use me in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. He promised me that this closeness, this intimacy, would make our connection with the spirit world stronger. He manipulated me, twisted my trust and devotion, until I no longer saw the truth. The physical affair didn't just remain in the quiet corners of the church. It seeped into my life, infecting everything I did. It was the reason I began to lose touch with my mother. I was isolated, and I didn't even realize how deep the damage was. He knew how to destroy everything around me, little by little, in ways that made me think it was my fault. The consequences of the affair, the guilt, the shame, the secrets that began to haunt me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces of people I had hurt, the trust one had broken, the lies I had told. The destruction didn't stop there. He used our affair as leverage. He told me that if I confessed the truth, if I revealed what had happened between us, everything I had worked for, everything I had built, would be destroyed. He painted a picture of ruin, of chaos, if I spoke out. I was trapped. I could feel it. The walls were closing in, but I didn't know how to escape. The power I had once thought was a gift was now consuming me, suffocating me. I had lost myself in the web of his lies. I was no longer the girl who had come to him for guidance. I was his prisoner. And he knew it. You see, in all this, I never knew that he had harnessed a dark power in me for his benefit. The whole thing is that I later got the information of the dark power through a man who had come visiting my mother as a family member of my father. It was when my mother had a discussion about me with him that he revealed that I was the reason why he had come. Because the stool or the family gods in my father's family are requesting for me. This is because I possess a power that I needed to come and serve the gods of my family. And whatever the prophet has been telling us and using me for, are all not from the source that he claims they are. My father's family elders came and I was made to leave the church to return home. You see what you came to see me doing here, I was cleansed from the things the pastor made me go through. In fact, it took me days, weeks and months before I could be free from his grips. But when it was all said and done, I was told that I will find my purpose. Because the gods will come and reveal themselves to me. That was later when I started having vision where I was taught herbs that could heal and solve so many sicknesses and problems. You asked the first time I wear only white cloth or attire. This is the reason I always need to be pure in serving the people. I don't know what you feel about my life and the choices even with this one. But everything or everyone in this life do have his or her own purpose. And mine is to use herbs to cure and heal people from their problems. But what the pastor was leading me into was witchcraft. And it was always meant to destroy him at the end of the day. All that I can say is that, whoever listens to me or hears my story, you must learn to know your own self. Because whatever you are meant to do lies with you and no one else.
Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. To anyone who places their trust completely in a prophet or spiritual leader, I want to share something from the depths of my heart. The basics of your spiritual journey is in your own hands. Learn to trust your instincts and learn to hear from your Creator and Father in heaven yourself. You cannot put your life and trust into the hands of someone you don't know their true intentions. Faith is a powerful thing. It gives us hope, direction, and the strength to overcome even the darkest times. But it's important to remember that faith should never blind us to the reality of the human nature we all carry, even those we admire and look to for guidance. Prophets and spiritual leaders are humans. They may be vessels of divine inspiration, but they also have their flaws, their struggles, and their secrets. Never forget that we all are imperfect beings, regardless of the titles we hold or the image we project to others. Even the ones who stand at the pulpit, who speak words of wisdom, may falter and live lives we cannot see. The power of faith is in knowing that it is okay to question, to seek the truth, and to not allow anyone, no matter how revered, to take control of your own spiritual journey. If you are still going to trust your leader or pastor, then it is equally important to keep your eyes open and your heart grounded. Ask questions when something doesn't feel right. Listen to your intuition. Don't ignore the small, quiet whispers inside you that tell you something isn't adding up. You have the right to protect your peace and your soul. Trust isn't blind loyalty. It's the act of following someone because their actions, their words, and their life align with what they preach. When those things begin to diverge, when you witness something that makes you uncomfortable, don't silence your own voice for the sake of loyalty or fear. Your spiritual health, your peace of mind, and your understanding of who you are is too important to be compromised by anyone's image or reputation. And remember, you are not alone. If you feel lost or confused, there are always others who share similar feelings. It's okay to seek support. It's okay to step back, reflect, and decide if this is the right path for you. Finally, protect your integrity. Your relationship with your faith should be personal, direct, and real. Don't let someone else's journey overshadow your own. You are worthy of clarity, truth, and the opportunity to grow spiritually in your own way, with or without the guidance of others. It's not easy to face the truth, especially when it challenges the things we've believed in for so long. But always remember, the truth, though difficult, will set you free. It will help you grow and find your path forward, with strength and clarity. Trust in yourself first, and always remember that faith, in its truest form, is meant to elevate you, not break you. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.